Good morning. First, I should thank Mary Ann Bimbao. Over the past few months, as I've watched her organize this session, I've seen how hard she works. She works very hard. So thank you for this opportunity. I thought that with all of you being here, I should provide an overview of the work that's going on here at IRRI. We have been neighbors for quite a while now, but I realize that we don't really understand, or we don't really know to any depth what each of us are doing. So it's a good idea for us to talk a little bit more, because after all, there are many connections between our work. And as I explain what we're up to, I think you'll see some of those connections. But first, let me ask, who's here for the first time at IRRI? Okay, so a quarter maybe. Who's in the Philippines for the first time? Same folks? Fewer? Who's from Philippine government? Okay, right, thank you. All right, so here we are, you're at IRRI, and this is the campus, right? And we're sitting right now in this building, right here. And most of this is University of the Philippines at Los Baños. Now, we were founded in 1960 by Ford and Rockefeller here at UPLB because in 1958, when the decision was made to found IRRI, only the University of the Philippines at Los Baños had an agronomy department. The university in Bogor in Indonesia did not yet exist. It actually was just a livestock operation. Cassette Sart in Bangkok did not yet exist. And Singapore, there was not yet even born. So the fact is that at that time, only UPLB had an agronomy department. Now, IRRI is now located, Los Baños headquarters, and we have 15 country offices across the globe in most rice-growing countries, including an operation in Burundi, based in Burundi, and offices in Kenya, Tanzania, and Mozambique, and also an office in Uruguay to take care of the Latin America countries, and a relationship with SIAT in Colombia. We have 1,300 staff from 36 countries working here at IRRI. Out of the 1,300 staff, roughly 300 are expatriates from all over the world. So we are kind of like Finn. We are not really an NGO. We're not government. We're not UN. We do have treaty status as an international organization. So we're kind of just about the only one of its kind. The mission? To reduce poverty and hunger, improve health, and of course doing this while ensuring environmental sustainability. And that's a major problem because, of course, rice thrives in water, like fish. And indeed, we do have some rice-fish activities. And water is a precious resource that we're all worried about. Rice is the global staple, and in the Philippines, it's often described as the basic diet is rice and fish. So we should really work together. And we know that half the world eats it every day, and 70% of the world's poor have rice as their staple diet. Now, the Green Revolution was born here at IRRI in the 70s and 80s. And it began by crossing these two varieties. And in fact, if you walk down Pili Drive, you can actually see these varieties growing. Take a walk around. Peta is Indonesian, DGWG is Taiwanese, and they cross the two together to produce the first mega variety called IR8. Now we're up to IR168, something like that. And yields are now roughly 4 tons and above, even more depending on the growing conditions. And half of all rice varieties grown across Asia all came from here. We have had some independent assessments of IRRI's work, and the deliveries are there. $1.5 billion per year for the countries where we work, boosting yields by an average of 11%. And if you translate that on a per hectare basis, we're talking about $52 per hectare per year in the Philippines and $76 per hectare per year in Indonesia and Vietnam. But what we're really excited about are results on recent research. And this is November 2013. The fact is that the first green revolution benefited mostly those who had access to irrigation, those who had access to the inputs. But the new generation of varieties that are being produced benefit those isolated the most. The scheduled castes, women, in poorer areas, in poorer soils. And this is what we're really excited about. A preferential impact on the poor. And we expect many more hungry people, right? As rice prices rise, since rice is a wage good, then more people are more hungry. And we like rice. Look at this number. Thailand, 140 kilos per head per year. And the world champion here, Myanmar, 228 kilos per head per year. Can you imagine eating that much rice? Europeans basically eat about 35 kilos per head per year. Americans about 40 kilos per head per year. But in Asia, you've got these very large numbers. So we expect a lot more consumption down the road. And the question is, how do we produce all of that? We expect 112 million more metric tons of rice that's needed just to keep up with population growth over the next 25 years or so up to 2040. The problem, however, is that yields have not grown as fast. In the 70s to 90s, yields were growing at roughly over 2%. Now, it's only barely 1%. That's barely enough to keep up with population growth. So that's the real problem in a context of worsening resource scarcity. Land, labor, and water are running short. Arable land, as urbanization proceeds, as population growth continues to grow rapidly, per capita urban land, arable land in Asia is falling. Farms are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And we know that climate change will reduce productivity. Temperature increases, rainfall, sea level, and weather hazards. And we know that global warming is taking place. We track the weather in our own weather station, and we know that over the last 40 years or so, temperatures have increased about 2 to 4 degrees. And the basic impact of higher temperatures is lower yields. Roughly speaking, for every 1 degree rise in temperature, it's a 10% fall in yields. That's really, really big impact. Sea levels rising. I wonder, as sea levels rise, will there be more fish? You tell me. And we know where the rice growing areas are. These are the green areas across Asia as mapped from satellite imagery. And if we focus on the Mekong by use of the European Space Agency satellite, and let me ask, who's from Europe here? Okay. Your taxes are helping pay for this. Thank you very much. Because our access to the European Space Agency satellite is for free. Thank you. We get images from Sentinel every 12 days. Later this year, we will be getting the images every 3 days. This allows us to keep track of the crop. We can forecast yields. We can forecast total rice production. And we can also assess, with the aid of on-the-ground plant pathology, the status of the crop, the health of the crop. And of course, this is only for rice. But the images are there, given more interpretation we can interpret the images also for other crops. Now, the satellite imagery tracks water. It's the interaction between water and light. And I wonder, are there applications that you guys can use? That's a good question to ask. So back to the Mekong, we know where the rice growing areas are in blue. We also know where the flood, saline-prone delta and low-lying areas are. This is the Red River Delta in North Vietnam, the Mekong River Delta in South, the areas around Bangkok, the areas around the Irrawaddy Plain in Myanmar and Bangladesh. And guess what? When the waters rise, the first crop that will be flooded is, of course, rice. It's grown in the deltas. So it is the most sensitive crop. So these are also the drought-prone areas in the inlands. So a lot of the research that's going on at IRRI is rice ready for climate change. And all of that is based on what's in the gene bank. And I hope that in your 4 days here, we can probably arrange for a visit to the gene bank. Now, can anybody make a guess as to how many rice varieties there are? Thousands? 4,000? 2 bids here, going once, going twice. Anybody else? Okay. There are 128,000 varieties of rice kept in the gene bank. And of course, this is just the working gene bank. There's a backup gene bank kept in Fort Collins, Colorado in collaboration with the USDA. And the ultimate gene bank is in Svalbard, Norway. Again, thank you to Europe, the Global Crop Diversity Trust. So we can actually honestly say that for rice at least, extinction is no longer a problem. We also work with traditional varieties from the mountains, isolated communities, hinterlands, and we're still discovering what these heirloom varieties have, the traits that they have, the treasures in science that they may offer. And this is still the subject of ongoing beginning foundation research. But the cutting edge of the envelope is research like this. Photosynthesis. C3 is one photosynthesis process and C4 is another. In layman's terms, I would say that C3 is the photosynthesis that takes place in rice, and C4 is the photosynthesis that takes place in maize and corn. Maize and corn are much more efficient factories of food. And the idea is, how do we make rice behave more like corn in processing sunlight and nutrients to make more food? And in so doing, be able to increase the efficiency with which rice produces food for us all. This is long-term research, and it's the heart of the research that's going on here. This is submarine-tolerant rice. It's very easy to see those varieties with the submergence-tolerant gene inserted and those varieties that are not. This research has been going on for the last 15 years, and here's a farmer in India who started out being the first test case for Swarna sub-1, and he had a good harvest afterwards. This is now available to 12 million plus farmers across Asia. We also try to combine the traits, drought tolerance and flood tolerance. Farmers don't know if they'll be hit by a drought or a flood, so we try to combine it. It's like crop insurance. We also work with alternate wetting and drying, simple tools to enable a farmer to measure the moisture content in the soil so he doesn't have to flood the field all the time. It reduces water use by 30%. And there's a bonus. The bonus is it reduces greenhouse gases. Now, we're working on rice fish systems, and I hope it's something that we can work on together too. Farmers often grow fish in the same rice paddy. Are there ways in which we can collaborate to make this work better? We also work with IT, get information from the cloud, like your data, and pass it on to farmers directly, bypassing the extension systems, through printouts or by a simple text message on a cell phone. But the perfect variety is what we're after. Makes good sushi, makes good table rice, and it has to be healthier. Why? Well, micronutrient deficiency is a major problem across the developing world. We lack vitamin A, vitamin zinc, and iron, and rice-based diets have a problem. So part of the work that goes on here is this. This is golden rice. Now, of course, this is controversial because it's a GMO. But the fact is that if populations eat a lot of rice, why don't we improve the nutritional quality of the rice? And that's the basic approach. All of the output of IRRI is available to the world for free. You can actually go on the website, request for a set of seeds, and we'll send you the sample for free. We work with partners across the globe, some 900 research institutions and government agencies. We also work on policy issues. This is an interesting one. Bangladesh, India, and Nepal agreeing to share any research output they have immediately without having to reinvent the wheel in each country. So once it's discovered in any one country, it's immediately shareable in the other countries. We also work with ASEAN to develop a new generation of rice scientists for training and extension and whatever we need for the future. So thank you very much. And of course, welcome to IRRI.